So have you ever had one of those nice phone calls from the random number that it's time to extend your car's warranty? Now is the time to extend your warranty with Christ. Today we are renewing our covenant with God, not because we have to, but because we need to. Because sometimes, as we go about our years, we don't produce the fruit that we should. And that's because we're not living in the covenant that we have made with God. If we truly live in the way that God calls us to live, which is to love God and to love our neighbor with our whole selves, could you imagine what we could do? If we could do that 100% of the time, 52 weeks out of the year, could you imagine how much better the church would be? But let's be honest, we're people. Some of you are looking at your watches wondering when the kickoff will begin. Some of you are still a little tired from partying last night, even if you did go to bed at 9 o'clock. Some of you are wondering, what is ahead of me in this new year? What if in this new year, we focused our lives on Jesus? What if in everything we did, what if we took that lens and that we tried to do everything through the lens of Jesus? How are we sharing Jesus with the world? Are we showing love to everyone? Are we caring for our neighbor? Are we loving God in a way that our lives show without ever having to wear a Christian t-shirt or a Christian bumper sticker? What if we really lived in to the covenant that God established with us, that he loves us and he cares for us, and that it's our job to then share that with the world? See, that's how we're able to be here today, because if it wasn't for those early believers who were willing to risk their lives and their faith to share the story of how the gospel made an impact on them, then we wouldn't be here today. They were willing to not listen to the society of saying, well, don't talk about your faith, and Jesus really isn't the way. And for these people, they were, and we're part of that covenant today. We're part of that story. And I think about this year, and I'm not one for resolutions, because for me, resolutions fail by the second week because I just don't get committed to it. So a few years ago, one of the things I started doing was having a theme for the year, and I try to live into the theme for the year, and this year's theme for the church, because I try to do it for the church, and this year's theme for me, and as I lead you as your pastor, is to be renewed. I think it's time we live in a renewed life. We renew our covenant with God. We renew our vows with God that we made at our baptism. We recenter and refocus our lives to point people to Jesus in every step and every breath that we do. And so this year, I want us to be renewed. I want us to be renewed to live like Jesus. And if you want to know what it lives like to live like Jesus, look at the John verse today. Be in him. Take his fruit. Produce fruit. Or if you really want to know, go look back at Luke 4, when he shuts out his mission statement and he shares what he's here to do. But for us to live like Jesus means that we need to get out of our normal comfort zones and be willing to meet new people and to love and care for new people, even if they don't think and act like us. Because you ever notice that's what Jesus did? Like, he didn't just hang out with the religious people. Actually, he really didn't like hanging out with the religious people, because they were always asking him questions. And they were always bothering him. But what he really liked to be with is those people on the outskirts, those people who were lost and disenfranchised, and people who were not the norm of society. That's where Jesus hung out with. That's how Jesus lived his life. And just think, he didn't go and get like 12 good friends to come with him on this journey. He picked 12 people that he knew would be the best people to follow him. They didn't have all the gifts. They didn't have the seminary degrees. They barely, they could barely fish. They could do a few things. But have you ever noticed that even on the way, those guys that Jesus called, they weren't the best of the best. And you know that because, the disciples were kind of struggling a little bit. They had Jesus with them and they still struggled. So what does that say for you and me? That it's okay. That on this journey as we go throughout this year, it's going to be okay. We will fail. There will be moments where we will fail. But when we fail, if we turn to Jesus and say, what did we do wrong? Jesus will say, pray like this. Do this. If we can live like Jesus, we will be renewed. Which then leads us to serve like Jesus. And we should be a people of service, a people who are willing to give no matter what it is. And even if we don't have the best gifts, being willing to share ourselves with one another. Jesus served in a way that is a great model for you and me. He was willing to be present. He was willing to be patient. He was willing to share love. And then the other thing, I think when we do that, when we serve like Jesus, we find that renewal. Because I don't know about you, but if you've never been on a mission trip, I've been on a few myself, and as tired as I get as the week goes on, I find myself being renewed. And I say that because it's always fun. Like I remember one time we were serving at a house in Houston, Texas, and they didn't really give us design what they really wanted in regards to a ramp and stairs. They weren't really clear on their expectation of what we were to do, so we built them a ramp and a staircase right next to each other. And the project manager came and looked at it, and he said, that's not what we had in mind, but it will work. And the homeowners were just excited that they had a ramp that they could get their mother down. They could care less about the stairs. They even told us a few times, you don't have to fix those stairs, just we've got a ramp. And I found myself a little frustrated that we didn't do what we were asked to do, but then I was reminded really quickly that we were called there to tend to that family and love on that family and care for that family. And in the midst of that, I found myself being recentered and reminded that sometimes mission trip quality is the best quality. I had to tell that to the guy that was the retired the contract worker that was with us, because he was wanting everything to be precise, and I was just wanting the job to be done well. So if we serve like Jesus, we find renewal. And then to have fun like Jesus. Have you ever noticed in the Gospel of Luke that Jesus goes from almost dinner party to dinner party to dinner party? I don't know about you, but I have never read in the Bible where it says church should be boring. I have never read in the Bible where it says you should be bored for an hour. I've looked. Because I have to admit, there's one thing that I know that always happens is that we become bored with it. And sometimes we become bored with it because we're not focusing ourselves on Jesus. And we may miss out on the opportunity that may be presenting itself. But I want us to have fun. I want us to have fun so that we can be renewed. And there is a sense of laughter. I don't know about you, but I had fun last Sunday. I had fun last Sunday doing the trivia moments and all that stuff, and it was just fun. We can do that. We can have fun together. There are things that we can do together. And if we can do that, we're living into the covenant that God called us to live like Jesus, to share Jesus' story, and to serve God's people in a way that shows love for everyone. And so if we can do that, if we can live, serve, and have fun like Jesus did, we will find renewal. I believe it. So are you with me? So let's do this. So let us commit ourselves to prayer. Will you pray with me?